Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar on 9 ways to leave your business. I'm Amy Longmore and I will be introducing your presenter today, Michael Camerata. I'd like to start by telling you a little more about Mike and his experience. Mike is the founder of Touchtone Advisors, a merger and acquisition firm. He has 35 years of professional and personal experience in business, marketing, and sales. Before founding Touchtone Advisors, Mike was an owner and officer in his family business. Earlier in his career, he was a practicing attorney in Connecticut for 12 years. He is the past president of the New England Business Brokers Association and has earned the prestigious designation of Merger and Acquisitions Master Intermediary. Mike is currently on the board of directors for the M&A Source, which is the world's largest international organization of experienced merger and acquisitions intermediary, representing the middle market. Please type any questions you may have during the webinar in the chat box to the right side of your screen, and we will address them at the end of the webinar. Please ask any questions as they occur to you. There will be a brief Q&A session at the end to respond to questions. And I will be sending the YouTube link to you in your email after the presentation. I will now pause and turn this over to Mike to begin his presentation. We hope you enjoy the webinar. Mike, are you ready to begin?
I'm ready, Amy. Thank you, everyone, for attending. If you attended any of our webinars last year, you may recall that they were 60-minute webinars that we have shortened to 30 minutes. And at 30 minutes, I will have trouble completing this. At 30 minutes, you may feel that you're being rushed just a little bit and may be concerned about missing something on the slides, which is why we are going to email you the link on YouTube. So if you ever want to refer to this, or in the future, you'll be able to do that. So with that, let's begin. 9 ways to leave your business. And on the first slide, I'm going to provide those attending with a brief overview of the 3 kinds of people that sell businesses and where a Touchtone Advisor fits into that. On the left, you'll see investment bankers. Those are the people who sell Fortune 500 companies or any public company, and divisions of companies and private companies that may be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So they're on the left. On the right are Main Street businesses that are sold by Main Street business brokers, pizza shops, dry cleaners, liquor stores, restaurants, hair salons, things like that. And those are companies that are owned by an individual, generally going to be sold to an individual, and generally going to be financed with an SBA loan. Touchtone Advisors is in the middle. We sell primarily manufacturing, distribution, and service businesses. Those businesses generally have revenues anywhere from $2 million to $30 million. And we sell them on the basis of their synergistic and strategic value as opposed to just on their financial value. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go on. But let's begin. For anyone leaving their business or contemplating leaving their business, I've never met an owner who realizes that he has so many options available to him. And so what I've done here is I've listed 9 different options along with the advantages and disadvantages. I will allow you, for the most part, to read those advantages and disadvantages yourself, and I may highlight a couple of them, but for the most part, I'll be speaking to issues that aren't always on the slide. So let's begin with people who own a family business. For most owners of a family business, the decision as to whether they should leave it to family members or not is a fairly easy one. Either they have family members who are willing and qualified to operate the business after them. They want the legacy to continue, and so they feel very comfortable having a family member or members succeed them in ownership and management of the business. And the only real question is, how do I go about doing that? And that's a whole separate topic. Anyone in that position, I would strongly urge you to join one of the family business centers that are available in the area that would help you do that. UMass Family Business Center, for those of you in Northern Connecticut and Western Massachusetts. The University of New Haven Family Business Center, for those in Southern Connecticut. Now, for others, though, for those, again, we have the situation where people have family members in the business, and then we have situations where people don't have any family members that are willing or capable. And it's clear, and so the owner's got to move on to one of the other alternatives. Many people, though, really struggle in this area because it's not a clear decision for them. They may have family members. In particular, they may have sons or daughters who are in the family business, but they're not sure that they're ready to take the business over. They're not sure that that their retirement is going to be safe in the hands of their children or a brother-in-law or something like that. And it can be a real struggle to come to a decision as to how am I going to structure this and what really is the best way to handle it. Here again, I would encourage you, don't procrastinate. 5 years before you're really ready to leave the business, have this particular issue resolved in your mind as to whether you're going to be leaving your business to your family or not. Second alternative, many business owners have partners, and so an alternative is, why wouldn't I sell it to my partner? Particularly if my partner is 15 or 20 years younger than I am, and in fact, this may be the reason that you as a business owner took a partner on, so that you would have someone to sell the business to down the road. And as you can see, there are advantages and disadvantages to this. As with a family business, one of the big advantage is the skills, knowledge of the people that are coming in. They're known quantities. You've worked with them. You know what their strengths and weaknesses are. You're pretty much assured that the mission and culture of the business is going to be continued, that your employees are going to be protected. All of these are important issues, and you'll see them also at the next slide when we talk about a sale to employees or a sale to management. So, and then another important issue is confidentiality. If you're selling to family members or transferring your business to family members, if you're selling to partners, if you're selling to your management team, you can keep the entire transfer under the radar. Their confidentiality isn't a problem. The people that are coming in already know the company, are already familiar with it. There's no need for a lot of due diligence because they've been there for years and years. In each of these three situations, though, there is and three situations being sale to family members, sale to your partner, sale to your management team, you're not going to be able to maximize the price in all likelihood. And that's because whoever buys the business in each of these situations is going to be in the same position and have the same cost structure that you as an owner have. They're going to have the same employees, the same location, the same margins, and they're not going to have be able to combine any resources. They're not going to be able to eliminate any positions that a strategic acquirer would be able to eliminate. So let's go to the third alternative, a sale to management. Most companies, larger I should say, most larger companies have key management people. They may have a management team, and certainly a sale to the management team makes a lot of sense. makes sense from the perspective of continuity and continuation of the culture, the employees, the location, even the legacy of the business. Another advantage that the seller would have in all three of these first alternatives is that he can remain active in the business. And as we go on, we're going to see that that's the case. But on the other hand, it is important to many owners. Disadvantage, as with the previous two alternatives, is since there's no competition really if you're selling to management, no competition if you're selling to your partner or leaving it to your family, selling it to your family, then you're unlikely to get the very highest price. But that, of course, isn't always the determinative factor for someone selling their business. ESOPs, employee stock ownership plans. Most people, most owners have heard about ESOPs, but have very little knowledge as to what they are and what the advantages and disadvantages are. This is just as it sounds. The employees of your company would actually own it if you were to use this alternative. The federal government encourages transfers from owners to their employees in the sense that the federal government provides significant tax advantages if you were to employ this particular strategy. In a sense, you would be able to sell your company without paying at the time of sale any taxes at all on the sale of your business. So if you've got a business that you started from scratch and it's now worth $4 or $5 million and you were to sell that to your employees using an ESOP, you would not have to pay capital gains taxes on that $5 million. That's a significant amount of money, certainly well over $1 million, and that's very attractive. What I found, though, is that owners who are interested in ESOPs don't do it for the tax advantages. They do it because they genuinely feel a loyalty and an appreciation of their employees who have gotten them this far. And so they just like the idea of my employees continuing this company on in the same location and furthering my legacy. The problem is that in very few situations are the employees able and willing to assume that responsibility. Certainly, if you're an owner and this particular alternative appeals to you, you must begin at least 2 or 3 years before your exit preparing your employees, training your employees, having some key advisors around you who are familiar with ESOPs and how one prepares for them and the advantages and disadvantages. I have taken a number of business owners to meet with ESOP lawyers, and they've been very appreciative. These are complimentary meetings. I'd be happy to do that again. I need to say, though, that I've yet to see an owner that's gone all the way through with it. And largely it's because the employees of the company simply aren't ready and willing to assume their end of the bargain. Let's go to the next alternative, which is sale to an individual buyer. Whether or not you're going to sell to an individual buyer is largely a function of the size of your business. If you have a Main Street business, pizza shop, dry cleaners, liquor store, that kind of thing, you probably are going to sell to an individual buyer. And that buyer is going to run the business very similar to the way you run it. And that buyer is going to obtain a loan probably from the SBA, which is SBA standing for Small Business administration, financing. And the purpose of the SBA and the SBA's guarantee of these loans is to promote small business ownership and to assist you as an owner in finding a buyer for your business, because most small businesses don't have a lot of assets. Banks, on the other hand, without the SBA guarantee, won't lend on businesses just on the basis of their cash flow. They want to know, how am I going to be able to recover my money if cash flow stops and I have to liquidate the assets? And so that essentially takes commercial banks right out of the picture. So again, the important things here are, depending on the size of your business, if it's a small one, if it's a Main Street business, one of your likely alternatives will be to sell to an individual. You could still sell to one of your employees. You could still sell to to a family member, certainly. But some of the other items or alternatives that we're going to discuss would not be available to you. Now let's talk about the strategic or synergistic buyer. And what we mean by that is there are buyers who look to buy businesses. These buyers already have companies and they want to grow their company. And so they come into the picture not looking to start a business or to buy a business that they're just going to continue. No, they come in with an agenda. And the agenda is, I want to buy this business because A, this business has a product line that I would like to have and that I don't have currently. This business has is in a geographic area that I would like to be in. We recently sold a larger distribution company that was located in Connecticut to another company located in Ohio. The company in Ohio was about $500 million in revenue, had 12 locations around the country, did not have a location in the Northeast. And the fact that my client company was located in the Northeast, had a very similar product line, and was large enough to really move the needle for this other company, made it very attractive, and they paid a lot more than the company would have otherwise commanded in terms of a price because of that strategic advantage that they saw. A synergistic advantage would be one where a company looks to buy another company and says, well, if I own this company, there's a lot of duplication that I would not have to pay for, that the company I'm buying is paying for. For example, if the company I'm buying has an accounts receivable and accounts payable department, I don't have to pay for that. I can let those people go, fold it right into my accounts receivable and accounts payable department, have it all done electronically, especially in this day and age, and so save a lot of money. In fact, many times a synergistic buyer will come along and move the entire company that's purchased, change the location, fold it into theirs, in which case they save all of the occupancy expense, the rent, the electricity, the insurance, the taxes, the plant manager or whoever's maintaining the current location. And so you can see the advantages, and you can probably appreciate that the strategic and or synergistic buyer is able to pay more than the person, either the individual or a company that comes in and assumes the same cost structure as the current owner has. Now, as with anything, there are disadvantages of selling to a synergistic and strategic buyer. The first disadvantage is you're going to have to sell 100% of your company. You're not going to be able, in all likelihood, after the first few months to come in, see how things are going, and have some input into the way the company's being run. All right, it's not going to be in a short period of time, in all likelihood, the same company that you started and that you maintain. It may be, but you've got absolutely no guarantee of that. And certainly you've got no guarantee that your employees and customers and suppliers are going to be treated the way that you've treated them. So it's like anything else in life. There are choices that we make, and owners weigh the pros and cons and then proceed accordingly. So let's look at another option. This option, which is sale to a private equity group, is generally only available to larger companies. And by larger companies, I mean companies with earnings of $2 million or more. Sometimes it could be a company with maybe $1.5 million in earnings, but for the most part, $2 million in earnings and more. The advantage is that the private equity comes in to a business that it likes, that looks very profitable, that looks like it's got a good growth curve. But nevertheless, the owner, for whatever reason, usually because of age, wants to leave the company. The private equity group comes in and says, you know, we will, since you are ready to leave, we'll buy your company from you, and you can either keep an interest in it or not. But we're basically going to run it the way you run it. We're going to keep it in the same location. We're going to keep all of your managers. We may not run it exactly the way you are, but we're not going to move it, and we're not going to lay everybody off because we don't really know how to run this company. We're going to be depending on your managers. And in fact, we may even allow your managers to have an equity interest in the company. Certainly, we will bonus them. And if you like, if you're younger and you want to continue being employed in the business, we'll certainly let you be employed. We'd like that because you've got the most experience. And in fact, we'll even allow you to own part of this company, let's say 30%. And then at the end of 30%, at the end of 5 to 7 years, if everything goes well, we will make this company, 30% of this company, worth more than we paid for 100%. And you get a second bite out of the apple. You get paid in the beginning, and you get paid when we sell the company. That appeals to a lot of owners. I've had owners sell to private equity groups, and it can work out well. Like anything else, there are disadvantages, and you can see those disadvantages here. Perhaps the biggest disadvantage is the marketing process is going to take a little bit longer, and especially if you're going to be keeping 30% of the business, while you will have taken chips off the table, you have sold the 70%, it's sometimes disconcerting to think that someone else is in control of my business, and I have to go along with them because they're the majority owner. So that's sale to a private equity group. Let's next talk about a voluntary liquidation. And someone might say, well, why would I ever, or who would ever, agree to a voluntary liquidation? Well, those of you, and I'm sure that's most of my audience, probably all of my audience, can remember the situation in 2012, 2013, when the economy, almost ground to a halt. Banks weren't lending. Homeowners weren't buying. Certainly no one was building homes. And businesses certainly were not expanding. What if you were a construction company during those years, and for whatever reason you needed or wanted to sell your company? What would you do? You've got perhaps $2 million in equipment and no contracts. No one's building homes, additions, new factories. It's just not happening. So what are your alternatives? No one's going to loan someone money to buy your business because there's no earnings. In fact, you have losses. You have people on the payroll. You have payments to make on your equipment and no money to do that with, no money coming in. Well, your only option will be, if you need or want desperately to sell at that time, is to liquidate your company. Sell your equipment, collect whatever money is owed to you, take that money and pay off any loans that you have, and close the doors. Certainly, you've lost going concern value, but you're not a going concern anymore if you've got no customers. And and certainly, there's a loss of employment for family members and employees, but you may have already laid these people off. So my point is here, sometimes there is no choice but to do it. On the other hand, at least you made a conscious decision, and in fact, in a voluntary liquidation, you're absolutely going to be better off than if you proceed to our last alternative. And the last alternative is one that sadly all of us have seen, and involuntary liquidation can happen because you no longer can pay your bills and you're into bankruptcy. It can happen because there was a sudden death or sudden health issues that snuck up on the business owner. Sometimes it's a situation where nothing snuck up on the business owner. The owner made a conscious or unconscious decision that he was not going to sell his business until he left feet first. And again, we've all seen those situations. I have situations right now where people in their 80s are saying to me, well, I'm not quite really ready to consider selling right now. You know, see me next year or the year after. And the owners are in their 80s. Where are we going? But it happens. It's unfortunate for the employees because a business that could have been continued probably won't be continued on. It's unfortunate for family members because they have to clean up the mess, so to speak, and there's a lot of emotional strain at that time, maybe a lot of embarrassment, and it's just a poor situation all the way around, and yet it happens all the time. So that's the end. And do we have any questions, Amy? I still have some time for them, I think.
Okay, yes, we do. Here is a question that came in. I am not thinking of selling my business for at least 3 years. Should I be speaking with someone like you now? If so, why?
That's an easy question, a good question. And the easy answer is yes, absolutely. The reason is it's a lot easier to solve tomorrow's problems today than it is to wait until tomorrow. We have the best results if we're simply talking about companies that are sold. We have absolutely the best results if we have been working with the company for 2 or 3 years before the owner intends to sell. And the reason is that we can prepare the business for sale. We can make suggestions to the owner that are going to increase the value of this business, absolutely, and not necessarily cost a lot of money, all right, but things that do take time. And without the time to do it, the owner's going to be in a position where he's going to settle for less because he hasn't prepared. Certainly, even in considering your options, all right, if you're going to take option number 1 as opposed to option 3 or 4, well, you're going to do different things. You're going to operate your business differently in the next 2 or 3 years than you would if you were to take options 3 or 4. And there's nothing wrong with having 2 options and proceeding, but it is important to begin the process of thinking and planning. And I would encourage you to do that. We meet on a complimentary, no obligation basis with business owners all the time, and to do just that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mike. Another question that came in, is it possible to prepare for 2 or 3 of these strategies simultaneously?
Again, and I think I answered this a little bit in the previous one, but certainly it is possible. For example, if you're going to sell your business to either a private equity group or a strategic acquirer, hell, if you're going to sell it to anybody, one of the things that's going to make your business more valuable is to identify who in your company is key to its continuation. All right, who is the most important person or persons when it comes to your company moving forward without you? Because in fact, when you sell or have a health issue or leave this earth, your company is going to be without you. And those are the kinds of things that you need to begin working on earlier rather than later.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I would like to take a moment to let everyone know that our next webinar is scheduled for Thursday, June 9th from 12 to 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, and our topic will be how to sell under the radar. Watch for an email invitation that will include more information and registration. We hope you'll join us again. This concludes our session for today. Thank you very much.